Effective immediately, I'll be taking control of Morrison Enterprises, my sister Charlotte announced to the stunned employees gathered in the main conference room. My father's illness means someone needs to step up, and as the most qualified Morrison, I'm the natural choice. I watched from the back of the room, noting how she'd already redecorated Dad's office with her awards and credentials before he'd even been in the hospital for 24 hours. The Harvard MBA diploma held center stage, something she never failed to mention at every family gathering. My phone buzzed quietly. Final transfer complete. 51% ownership secured through offshore holdings. Board documents prepared for tomorrow's meeting. Marcus. I typed back a quick, proceed as planned, while Charlotte continued her impromptu coronation speech. Some changes will be necessary, she declared, her voice dripping with corporate buzzwords. We need to streamline operations, optimize efficiency, and most importantly, modernize our approach to. I tuned out the rest, having heard variations of this speech during countless family dinners. While Charlotte had spent the last 5 years climbing Morrison Enterprises' corporate ladder through our father's influence, I'd been quietly building something much bigger. The consulting business, my family dismissed as a hobby, had grown into Shadow Peak Holdings, a private investment firm that now controlled businesses worth billions across 3 continents. For the past year, I'd been systematically acquiring Morrison Enterprises stock through a complex network of shell companies. Of course, Charlotte's voice cut through my thoughts, some positions will need to be re-evaluated. Her gaze fell meaningfully on me. Sarah, as head of our smaller regional accounts, I trust you understand that in times of transition, every role must justify its existence. The irony almost made me smile. My smaller regional accounts position was simply a cover that allowed me to monitor the company while I acquired it piece by piece. The real Sarah Morrison spent her days orchestrating global mergers and acquisitions that would make Charlotte's Harvard professor's heads spin. I understand completely, I replied mildly, playing my part as the underachieving younger sister. The one who'd attended state college. The one who settled for a modest career. The one they'd all underestimated. After the meeting, I visited Dad in the hospital. He lay there connected to monitors, but his eyes were alert and knowing when I walked in. Is it done? He asked quietly. I showed him my phone screen with the confirmation. Final shares purchased this morning. Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. He smiled weakly. Charlotte has no idea, does she? None. I sat beside his bed. She's already moved into your office. Changed the nameplate and everything. And the employee stock program she wants to eliminate? Safe, I assured him. Along with everyone's jobs and benefits. The only position being eliminated tomorrow will be her new one as CEO. Dad reached for my hand. I should have told her years ago that you were the one I was grooming to take over. That all those small accounts you managed were actually our largest corporate clients. It worked better this way, I said. Charlotte needed to show her true colors. And she did, the moment she thought she had power. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Marcus. Board packets distributed. Members receiving ownership disclosure documents now. Expect interesting reactions at tomorrow's meeting. Dad chuckled at the message. I wish I could see her face when she realizes her little sister now owns the controlling interest in Morrison Enterprises. About that, I pulled out my tablet. Want to watch the board meeting tomorrow via secure video feed? I had our IT team set it up specially. Wouldn't miss it. His eyes twinkled. Just make sure the cameras catch her good side when she learns who Catherine Shaw really is. Catherine Shaw, my professional alias, the mysterious investor who'd been buying up Morrison Enterprises stock for the past year. The name that would appear on tomorrow's ownership documents, revealing that the company's fate rested not in Charlotte's manicured hands, but in mine. As if on cue, Charlotte burst into the hospital room, still riding high on her presumed promotion. Sarah, why are you still here? Don't you have those quarterly reports to finish? Just visiting Dad, I said, slipping back into my submissive role. I'll have those reports ready for tomorrow's board meeting. Oh, don't bother attending, she waved dismissively. It's really for executive-level personnel only. You understand? Of course. I stood, squeezing Dad's hand knowingly. I wouldn't want to intrude on your big moment. That evening, I worked from my modest downtown apartment. Actually, the entire top floor of the city's most prestigious building, though my family thought I lived in a small rental across town. Multiple screens displayed Morrison Enterprises' financial data, stock movements, and the complex web of companies I'd built under the Shadow Peak Holdings umbrella. Marcus appeared on my video call, his usual composed demeanor slightly amused. The board members' reactions to the ownership documents are starting to come in. Mr. Patterson nearly choked on his evening scotch. I imagine finding out that Catherine Shaw owns 51% of the company was quite a surprise. I smiled, remembering how Charlotte had dismissed Patterson's warnings about mysterious stock purchases months ago. They've been trying to figure out who Catherine Shaw is for the past hour. The internet searches are entertaining. Marcus pulled up a screen showing various search attempts, though no one has made the connection to the quiet head of regional accounts yet. I'd chosen the name carefully, Catherine after our grandmother, who taught me that true power doesn't need to announce itself, and Shaw from my mother's maiden name. A subtle tribute to the women who'd shaped me, hidden in plain sight just like everything else I'd built. My phone lit up with a text from Charlotte. Cleared out your old office today. Moving you to the second floor with the junior staff. More appropriate for your position. Don't forget those reports. I typed back, congratulations on the promotion. See you at the board meeting. Her response was immediate. Didn't I tell you not to come? It's executives only. Trust me, I wrote. I wouldn't miss this for anything. Another call came in, this time from our father's private nurse. Ms. Morrison? Your father is asking for his tablet. Something about wanting to test a video feed. I smiled. Even from his hospital bed, Dad couldn't resist being part of tomorrow's revelation. He'd been the only one who'd seen through my careful masquerade, recognizing that his younger daughter was building something extraordinary while playing the role of underachiever. Please tell him it's all set up. The feed goes live at 8:55 a.m. Marcus cleared his throat. Security teams are in place for tomorrow. Given Miss Charlotte's temperament, we've increased personnel around the boardroom. Good thinking. I pulled up tomorrow's presentation files. Have legal standing by too. Once she realizes what's happening, she'll probably start throwing around threats of lawsuits. Already done. Though she might be interested to know that Preston and Associates, her favorite law firm, has been working for Shadow Peak Holdings for the past 3 years. I laughed, remembering how Charlotte had bragged about her connections to the city's most prestigious law firm. Any other potential surprises I should know about? Just one. Marcus's normally serious face broke into a rare grin. Your sister has apparently hired a film crew to document her first day as CEO for the company archives. Perfect. I closed my laptop, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Make sure they get her good side when everything falls apart. The next morning I arrived at Morrison Enterprises early, wearing my usual understated business attire. The security guards, who actually reported to Shadow Peak Holdings, nodded respectfully as I passed. In the elevator, I could hear executives whispering about the mysterious ownership documents they'd received. Catherine Shaw owns how much? But who is she? Did you see the corporate structure charts? Charlotte was already in the boardroom when I arrived, standing at our father's usual place at the head of the table. She'd replaced his nameplate with one reading Charlotte Morrison, Chief Executive Officer, in ostentatious gold lettering. Sarah, she frowned when she saw me. I specifically told you this meeting was for executives only. Oh, don't worry, I took my usual seat in the corner, opening my laptop. I'm exactly where I need to be. At precisely 9 a.m. Richard Bennett, the board chairman, called the meeting to order. Charlotte remained standing, practically vibrating with self-importance as her hired camera crew positioned themselves for her big moment. Before we begin, Richard announced, we need to address the ownership documents distributed last night. As you're all aware, a majority stakeholder has emerged. Yes, Charlotte waved her hand dismissively. Some investor bought some shares. But as Dad's eldest daughter and most qualified executive. Ms. Morrison, Richard interrupted firmly, perhaps you should take a seat. This directly concerns your presumed position. I'll stand, thank you. Charlotte's smile was brittle. As I was saying, Catherine Shaw, Richard continued, raising his voice slightly, through various investment vehicles, now controls 51% of Morrison Enterprises. According to our bylaws, this gives her the right to appoint the new CEO. The camera crew swung around, capturing the exact moment Charlotte's triumphant expression cracked. What? That's impossible. Daddy would never sell controlling interest to an outsider. Miss Shaw isn't exactly an outsider, Richard replied, then turned to me. Is she, Sarah? Every head in the boardroom turned toward my corner. I stood slowly, pulling out my own stack of documents. Catherine Shaw is my professional name, I said clearly. I've been acquiring shares through multiple investment firms for the past year. The camera crew, sensing a better story, swiveled to focus on me. Charlotte's face went through a fascinating series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, rage. That's absurd. You're just a low-level account manager. Actually, I picked up her nameplate from the head of the table and replaced it with one reading Sarah Morrison, Chief Executive Officer. I'm your new boss. The boardroom erupted in murmurs as I distributed detailed files showing exactly how I'd built my business empire while maintaining my cover in the regional accounts department. This is a joke, Charlotte sputtered. Sarah doesn't have the money or the expertise to. Your sister, Richard interrupted, has been running one of the largest private investment firms in Asia for the past 8 years. The regional accounts position was just a way to monitor the company while she acquired shares. I pulled up a presentation on the boardroom screens, showing the true scope of my business holdings. Morrison Enterprises is just my latest acquisition. Shadow Peak Holdings controls interests in technology, real estate, and manufacturing across 3 continents. Charlotte sank into a chair, her perfect composure crumbling. But your apartment, your clothes, you drive a Hyundai. Appearances can be deceiving, I replied calmly. While you were broadcasting your success, I was building something much bigger. That Hyundai. It's one of 100 vehicles my company owns. My apartment is actually the entire top floor of the Shadow Peak Tower downtown. And these clothes, they're from a boutique fashion line I acquired last year. This is outrageous. Charlotte suddenly stood up, her voice shrill. I'm calling Daddy's lawyers. You mean Preston and Associates? I smiled. They've been working for Shadow Peak Holdings for 3 years. In fact, they helped structure the share purchases that gave me control of Morrison Enterprises. Just then, the boardroom's main screen came to life, showing our father in his hospital room, grinning broadly. Hello everyone, he said cheerfully. I hope I haven't missed the best part. Charlotte whirled toward the screen. Daddy, you can't let her do this. I'm the one with the Harvard MBA. I'm the one who tried to dismantle the employee stock program? Dad interrupted. Who planned to lay off half our longtime staff? Who moved into my office before I'd been in the hospital for 24 hours? But, Charlotte looked around wildly, finding no allies among the board members. This isn't fair. Actually, I pulled up another document. It's perfectly fair. While you were focusing on titles and corner offices, I was learning every aspect of this business from the ground up. Dad's been aware of my plans for months. You knew? Charlotte asked Dad, her voice small. Of course I knew, he replied. Who do you think suggested Sarah take this approach? I've watched both my daughters carefully over the years. One saw leadership as a crown to be worn, the other saw it as a responsibility to be shouldered. The next hour was a detailed presentation of my vision for Morrison Enterprises. Charlotte sat silently, watching as the board members grew increasingly enthusiastic about my plans. By the end, even her hired camera crew had abandoned her to focus on the real story. The quiet sister who'd built an empire while everyone was looking the other way. One last thing, I announced. Charlotte, you're not being fired. She looked up, surprise breaking through her shock. You're being reassigned to our new European division, as a junior executive. It's time you learned how to build something, not just inherit it. Why? She asked quietly. Why not just fire me? Because that's the difference between us, I replied. You see business as a way to elevate yourself. I see it as a way to elevate everyone. Besides, I smiled, Dad always said family should stick together. As the board members filed out, congratulating me on my presentation, Charlotte remained seated, staring at her reflection in the polished table. How did none of us see it? She wondered aloud. All those years. You saw what you expected to see, I said, gathering my papers. The quiet sister in regional accounts, living modestly, driving an old car. You never asked yourself why someone with my financial background would stay in an entry-level position for 8 years. And Dad? He really knew all along. He figured it out last year when Shadow Peak Holdings started acquiring tech companies in Asia. He always said I reminded him of himself when he was younger, building something from nothing, staying quiet until the moment was right. I held the door open. Coming. Dad's waiting to talk to both of us. She stood slowly, her designer suit suddenly seeming like a costume. I've been horrible to you. Yes, you have, I agreed. But now you have a chance to learn what real leadership means. Starting with humility. As we walked to the elevator, Charlotte spoke softly. The camera crew got everything, didn't they? Every moment, I confirmed. But don't worry. The company archives will show this as the day Morrison Enterprises moved forward. Not just the day your little sister outmaneuvered you. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should watch most carefully. They might just be building an empire while you're busy announcing your own importance. As we rode down in the elevator, my phone buzzed one last time. It was Marcus. Shall I prepare the press release about the new CEO? I looked at Charlotte, who was staring at her reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls, her perfect world thoroughly shaken. No, I replied. Let's give my sister some time to adjust. After all, true power doesn't need to announce itself. The doors opened to reveal a lobby full of employees, all waiting to see what had happened in the board meeting. Charlotte instinctively straightened her spine, ready to face them with her usual bravado. But then she paused and stepped aside, letting me exit first. Maybe she was finally learning.
This is a personal, Maria, my father said, not looking up from the stack of papers on his desk. It's tradition. The business goes to the eldest son. I stood in his office at the back of Bella Rosa, our family's Italian restaurant that had been serving Chicago's North Side for 3 generations. The walls were covered with old family photos. My grandparents on opening day in 1952, my father taking over in 1985, and countless moments in between. Not a single photo showed a woman running the place. I've worked here since I was 12, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. I created half the menu items. I modernized our ordering system. Marco hasn't even worked a full shift in 2 years. My father finally looked up, his expression a mixture of condescension and what he probably thought was fatherly concern. Maria, you're 28. You should be thinking about marriage, children, not worrying about running a restaurant. My name is Maria Rossi, and I'd spent my entire life preparing to take over Bella Rosa. While my brother Marco was out partying through college, I was studying business management and culinary arts. While he was sleeping off hangovers, I was in the kitchen at 5 a.m., learning our grandmother's recipes and developing new ones. But none of that mattered because I had the wrong chromosomes. Marco doesn't even want the restaurant. I tried one last time. He said it himself. He'll learn to want it, my father replied firmly. Just like I did when your grandfather handed it to me. This is how things are done in our family. I looked at the latest photo on his wall. Marco's college graduation. He was grinning, probably already thinking about the bar crawl he had planned for that night. Next to it should have been my culinary school graduation photo. But that space remained conspicuously empty. Fine, I said quietly, I understand. My father's face softened slightly. There will always be a place for you here, Tesoro. In the kitchen where you can. No, I cut him off. I understand exactly what I need to do. I turned and walked out of his office, my mind already racing with plans. 6 months ago, when I first suspected this was coming, I'd started looking at properties in the neighborhood. Last week, I finally found it, the perfect location, just 2 doors down from Bella Rosa. The elderly couple who owned the space had been running a failing deli for years. When I offered them fair market value in cash, they practically threw the keys at me. My phone buzzed as I left the restaurant, a text from my best friend and sous chef, Sophie. How'd it go? Exactly as expected, I replied. Time for plan B, you still in? Her response was immediate. Already gave my 2 weeks notice. When do we start? I smiled, looking down the street at my new property. The windows were covered in brown paper, hiding the renovations already underway. My father and brother walked past it every day, never suspecting what was coming. "Meet me there in an hour," I texted back. "Bring the plans." I'd spent years learning every aspect of running Bella Rosa, but I'd also spent that time knowing everything that could be improved. The menu, while classic, needed updating. The wine list was outdated. The kitchen layout was inefficient. And don't even get me started on their resistance to social media and online ordering. All things my father refused to change because that's how we've always done it. Well, I was about to show him a new way of doing things. Sophie was waiting when I arrived, blueprints spread across a makeshift table. The space was still rough, exposed beams, stripped floors, walls waiting for paint. But I could see its potential. "Your father's going to lose his mind," she said, grinning as she showed me the latest design updates. "Probably," I agreed. "But first he's going to lose his customers." The plan was simple but ambitious. Take everything that made Bella Rosa special, the warmth, the tradition, the family recipes, but modernize it. Create something that honored our heritage while embracing the future. I'd already secured loans using the money I'd saved over the years. My grandmother's recipes, the real ones, not the modified versions my father used, were safely stored in my apartment. And thanks to my time managing Bella Rosa's kitchen, I had relationships with all the best suppliers in the city. "The contractor says we can be ready in 3 months, Sophie reported. "The kitchen equipment arrives next week." I nodded, walking through the space. In my mind, I could already see it. The exposed brick walls, the open kitchen concept, the bar area where we'd serve the craft cocktails my father always dismissed as trendy nonsense. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my father. "Family dinner Sunday. Bring that nice doctor you met at the Conti wedding. Time you started thinking about your future." If he only knew. I spent the next few weeks dividing my time between Bella Rosa's kitchen and my new space. During the day, I played the dutiful daughter, pretending nothing had changed. At night, I worked with contractors, designed menus, and built my dream. Marco, meanwhile, was learning the business, which mostly meant sitting in the office playing on his phone while my father handled everything. He didn't notice when I slowly started taking home my personal recipes. He didn't question why Sophie and 2 other key staff members suddenly quit. He didn't even realize when I started subtly directing our most loyal customers to follow Bella Rosa's new social media accounts. Accounts that would, coincidentally, announce my new restaurant's opening. "You're absolutely ruthless," Sophie said one night as we finalized the menu. "I love it." I looked up from the wine list I was curating. "I learned from the best. My father always said business is business." "What are you going to call it?" I smiled, showing her the logo I'd been working on. The name was both a homage and a challenge. Roses. Just roses. Modern, simple, elegant. Everything Bella Rosa wasn't anymore. "He's going to see it as a declaration of war," Sophie warned. "Good," I replied, because that's exactly what it is. The next Sunday, at our weekly family dinner, I watched my father and brother discuss their plans for Bella Rosa's future. They talked about keeping things exactly as they were, about maintaining tradition. Neither of them noticed my quiet smile or the fact that the construction noise 2 doors down had stopped, indicating the renovations were complete. In 2 weeks, they'd learn exactly what tradition meant to me, and Chicago's restaurant scene would never be the same. The morning of Rose's grand opening, I stood in my brand new kitchen at 4 a.m., breathing in the scent of fresh bread and brewing espresso. Everything gleamed. The state-of-the-art equipment, the polished counters, the copper pots hanging overhead. "Ready?" Sophie asked, tying her apron. Our staff was already prepping, each person carefully chosen from the best restaurants in Chicago. Many had turned down higher-paying jobs just to be part of what we were building. "More than ready," I replied, checking my phone. The social media campaign we'd been quietly running for weeks had done its job. The secret preview photos, the carefully crafted teasers, the mysterious invitations sent to food critics and influencers. It had created exactly the buzz we wanted. At 7 a.m., right on schedule, my father and brother walked past on their way to open Bella Rosa. I watched through our floor-to-ceiling windows as they noticed the changed storefront for the first time. My father stopped dead in his tracks, staring at the elegant sign, "Rosa's, Modern Italian Cuisine." Through the windows, he could see our fully staffed kitchen, the sophisticated decor, and the line of people already forming despite the early hour. Marco's jaw actually dropped when he recognized Sophie expertly directing the kitchen staff. My father's face turned several interesting shades of red as he stormed toward our door. I met him outside, coffee in hand. "What is this?" he demanded, gesturing wildly at my restaurant. "What do you think you're doing?" "Running a business," I replied calmly. "Isn't that what you taught us to do? You're trying to compete with your own family? With Bella Rosa?" I took a sip of my coffee. "Compete? No, Papa. I'm going to show you what you could have had if you'd looked past your outdated traditions." He opened his mouth to argue further, but was interrupted by the arrival of Diana Chen, the city's most influential food critic. She'd never reviewed Bella Rosa. My father had always dismissed food critics as unnecessary, but she'd been personally invited to Rosa's opening. "Maria," she called out warmly, "everything looks amazing. Just like you promised." My father's expression shifted from anger to confusion as Diana breezed past him into the restaurant. She wasn't the only VIP guest we'd lined up. Throughout the day, food bloggers, local celebrities, and social media influencers would be arriving, all carefully scheduled to create maximum impact. "You should get back to Bella Rosa," I suggested to my father. "Your breakfast rush will be starting soon." "Well, what's left of it?" He followed my gaze to the growing line outside Rosa's, a line that would normally have been waiting for Bella Rosa's morning pastries. Marco, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. "Dad, maybe we should." "No," my father cut him off. "Let her play her game. Our customers know quality. They know tradition." But as they walked back to their restaurant, I could see the worry in their faces. They should be worried. Rosa's opening day was a carefully orchestrated symphony. Every detail had been planned. From the complimentary Prosecco served to waiting customers to the live Instagram stories being posted from our dining room. The menu was a perfect blend of traditional and modern. My grandmother's recipes elevated with contemporary techniques and presentations. Classic pasta dishes served alongside innovative small plates. A wine list that would make any sommelier proud. By lunch, the line stretched around the block. Every table was full, the bar was packed, and the energy was electric. Our point-of-sale system, something my father had always resisted, made service smooth and efficient. Through our windows, I could see Bella Rosa's dining room. It was maybe half full, mostly with their elderly regular customers. Their sidewalk chalkboards still advertised the same daily specials they'd been serving for decades. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications as photos of our food flooded social media. #RosaChicago was trending locally. Diana Chen's review, posted live from her table, was already being shared hundreds of times. "Your father's been standing in his doorway for the past hour," Sophie reported during our brief afternoon lull. "Just watching." I nodded, checking our sales figures for the day. We'd already exceeded our projected opening numbers, and dinner service hadn't even started. Then came the text I'd been waiting for. From Marco, "Can we talk?" "I'm a little busy," I replied. "Running a business." "Please, 5 minutes, without Dad." I considered it. Marco had always been lazy, entitled, but he wasn't stupid. He must have realized by now what was coming. Back door, 15 minutes. When I met him in the alley behind our restaurants, he looked different. Worried. Maybe even a little impressed. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked without preamble. "Since the day you told me you never wanted to run Bella Rosa," I replied. "Remember that conversation? 3 years ago, when you were drunk at Christmas?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "I meant it. I still do. I never wanted this life." "But you let him give you the restaurant anyway. Let him pass me over because tradition was more important than capability." What was I supposed to do? "Stand up to him," I said sharply. "Tell him the truth. Support your sister who actually wanted the restaurant. Any of those would have worked." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood. "It's not too late. We could tell him together. Make him understand." "It is too late." I cut him off. "Way too late. I don't want Bella Rosa anymore, Marco. I've built something better. Something mine. He'll never forgive you for this." I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to earn our father's approval, trying to prove myself worthy of the family legacy. "That's his problem," I said finally. "I'm done seeking forgiveness for being ambitious, for being capable, for being a woman who wants more than marriage and babies." Marco looked back at Bella Rosa. at the empty tables visible through the windows, at the outdated decor and faded sign. We're going to lose everything, aren't we? I followed his gaze, remembering all the nights I'd spent in that kitchen, dreaming of the day it would be mine. No, Marco, you're going to lose what you never wanted anyway. I'm going to succeed. There's a difference. I turned and walked back into my restaurant, leaving him standing in the alley between our two worlds, the past he was trapped in, and the future I was creating. The dinner service was about to start, and I had a feeling it was going to be unforgettable. The reviews started rolling in by the end of our first week. Diana Chen's write-up in the Tribune was just the beginning. Food blogs, social media influencers, and local news outlets all wanted to cover the new hotspot that was revolutionizing Chicago's Italian dining scene. But the most telling review came from Giuseppe Romano, an 82-year-old regular at Bella Rosa who'd been dining there since my grandfather's time. He shuffled into Rosa's one quiet Tuesday afternoon, ordered our osso buco, and cried. "Just like your nana used to make," he said, wiping his eyes. "Before your father changed everything." That was the secret nobody knew. Over the years, my father had slowly modified my grandmother's recipes, cutting corners, using cheaper ingredients, always in the name of efficiency. He thought nobody noticed, but the old-timers did. They just never said anything. Until now. Giuseppe's endorsement spread through the neighborhood's Italian community like wildfire. Suddenly, Bella Rosa's most loyal customers were making reservations at Rosa's instead. My father's response was predictable. First came anger. He banned any mention of my name in Bella Rosa. Then denial. He told everyone business was better than ever. Finally, desperation. "He's slashing prices," Sophie reported one morning, showing me Bella Rosa's new menu. "Everything's almost half off." I studied the prices, feeling a mixture of sadness and vindication. How long can they sustain that? Maybe 2 months with their overhead. Less if their suppliers won't extend more credit. I nodded, turning back to my own work. We were already planning our expansion. A private dining room for events, maybe even a rooftop space for summer. Our profits from the first month alone would cover the initial renovations. Then came the text from my mother. "Your father's sick." The stress. "Please, Maria, end this fight." I stared at my phone for a long time before replying. "It was never a fight, Mama. It was a lesson." 2 days later, Marco showed up at my office, looking exhausted. "We're drowning," he admitted without preamble. "Dad won't admit it, but we can't keep going like this." "What do you want me to do about it?" I asked, though I already knew what was coming. "Buy us out," he said quietly, "before there's nothing left to sell." I leaned back in my chair, thinking about the property assessment I had done last week, anticipating this very conversation. "Half market value," I offered. "And you both signed non-compete agreements. I won't have you opening another restaurant just to spite me." "Dad will never agree to that." "Then I'll wait 3 more months and buy it for a quarter of market value at the bankruptcy auction." He flinched but didn't argue. We both knew I was right. It took another week of negotiations, most of them through Marco, because my father still refused to speak to me directly. But finally, on a Sunday morning, the time we used to have family breakfast, we met to sign the papers. My father looked older than I remembered, though it had only been 2 months. He didn't speak as his lawyer reviewed the documents, didn't look at me as he signed away the restaurant he'd inherited from his own father. Only when everything was done did he finally meet my eyes. "You broke his heart," my mother said softly from beside him. "Your grandfather's legacy." I honored his legacy, I corrected her. By making something successful. By refusing to let tradition be an excuse for mediocrity. By destroying your family, my father finally spoke, his voice rough. "No, Papa. You did that when you decided your daughter's ambition was less important than your son's birthright." I stood gathering the signed documents. "You'll both receive the first payment tomorrow. The keys, please." Marco handed them over without a word. As they stood to leave, my father turned back one last time. "Was it worth it?" he asked. "All this, just to prove a point." I looked around at my empire, now 2 restaurants strong, with more locations already in planning. It wasn't about proving a point, Papa. It was about proving my worth, something you never gave me the chance to do. That evening, after they cleared out their personal belongings, I walked through Bella Rosa's empty dining room. So many memories in these walls, learning to make pasta at my grandmother's knee, serving my first table, creating my first original dish. "What are you going to do with it?" Sophie asked, following me through the space. I smiled, already envisioning the changes. We're going to honor its history, but do it right this time. No more cutting corners, no more clinging to outdated ideas just because they're traditional. 3 months later, the renovated space reopened as Nana Rosa's, a tribute to my grandmother and her original vision. The menu featured all her authentic recipes, plus modern interpretations that would have made her proud. My father never set foot in either restaurant again. Marco moved to Florida to open a beach bar, something he'd always wanted to do. My mother still calls every Sunday, though our conversations are careful, measured. But the customers, they come in droves. They take pictures of their food, share stories about dining at the original Bella Rosa, and create new memories in both restaurants. Sometimes late at night, I sit in Nana Rosa's with a glass of wine, looking at the old family photos I kept on the walls. I added some new ones too, including my culinary school graduation picture, finally getting its place of honor. Next to it hangs a framed copy of Diana Chen's first review, which ended with words that still make me smile. In a city full of Italian restaurants claiming to be family establishments, Rosa's stands out not just for its food, but for its courage. It takes strength to challenge tradition, to demand more than what's handed to you. In doing so, Maria Rossi hasn't just created a great restaurant, she's redefined what family business truly means. I'll drink to that. Author's note: a year later, Rosa's expanded to 3 more locations across Chicago. The original Nana Rosa's became a destination for food tourists from around the world. My father still hasn't spoken to me, but last week, I saw my mother sneaking in for lunch. She ordered the osso buco, my grandmother's original recipe. When she left, there were tears in her eyes. Sometimes breaking tradition is the only way to preserve what truly matters. The first email arrived on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting in my small apartment in Bangkok, sipping coffee and checking messages before heading to teach my English class. The subject line caught my eye: "Condolences for your family's loss." Confused, I opened it. The message was from an old family friend. "Dear Rebecca, I just heard about Sarah's tragic accident in Thailand. What a devastating loss. Sarah was such a bright light, taken far too soon. Please know your family is in my thoughts during this difficult time." I read it 3 times, my coffee growing cold beside me. Sarah, they were talking about me. I was Sarah Mitchell, very much alive and definitely not involved in any accidents. More emails followed, each one expressing sympathy for my apparent death. Old classmates, distant relatives, former colleagues, all offering condolences to my family, particularly my sister Rebecca. My hands shook as I called my best friend Emma back home in Boston. "Emma, something weird is happening," I said as soon as she picked up. "I'm getting condolence emails about my own death." There was a long pause. "Sarah," she said slowly, "Rebecca told everyone you died in a motorcycle accident 2 weeks ago. She said you were traveling in rural Thailand," and her voice cracked. "Oh my God, you're alive. You're actually alive." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My own sister had declared me dead. Why would she do this? I whispered, though deep down, I already knew the answer. Our grandmother had passed away 6 months ago, leaving behind a substantial inheritance. The money was to be split equally between Rebecca and me. But there was a catch. We could only access our portions on our 30th birthdays. Rebecca had turned 30 last month. I wouldn't for another year. "Sarah," Emma said gently, "Rebecca claimed your portion of the inheritance. She had some lawyer declare you legally dead and provided documentation of your accident. The money was released to her last week." I sat down hard, my legs giving out beneath me. The inheritance was significant, nearly $2 million each. Rebecca had always been driven by money, always scheming for more, but this was a new low. Our relationship had been strained for years. Growing up, Rebecca was the perfect daughter, straight A's, prestigious internships, the right friends, the right clothes. I was the dreamer, the one who wanted to travel, to teach, to experience life beyond our wealthy Boston suburb. Our parents didn't understand my choices, but our grandmother did. She was the one who encouraged me to follow my heart, who supported my decision to teach English abroad. She must have known you'd find out eventually, Emma continued. What was she thinking? I looked around my modest apartment, at the photos on my walls capturing my adventures across Southeast Asia, at the stack of papers from my students. I built this life on my own terms, proud of choosing passion over money. But Rebecca had just stolen $2 million from me, and she'd done it by erasing my existence. Sarah? Emma prompted when I didn't respond. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath, my shock giving way to something colder, more calculated. Nothing, I said finally. Not yet. What do you mean? Rebecca thinks she's won. She thinks I'm too far away, too disconnected from home to find out or fight back. So I'm going to let her keep thinking that. Sarah. She's getting married in 3 months, right? Big society wedding at the Four Seasons. Yes, but... Perfect. I felt a smile spread across my face, though there was no warmth in it. I think it's time for a family reunion. The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. I took a leave of absence from my teaching position, citing a family emergency. I didn't tell anyone I was coming home. Not my parents, not my old friends, no one except Emma. As far as the world was concerned, Sarah Mitchell was still dead. I spent hours combing through social media, tracking Rebecca's moves. She was living large with my inheritance, posting photos of expensive shopping trips and lavish parties. The wedding preparations were in full swing, with every detail meticulously documented online. She'd always wanted to be Boston's social queen, and now she had the money to make it happen. But what hit hardest were the posts about me. The carefully worded tribute to her beloved sister, taken too soon. The tearful remembrance at a charity event she'd organized in my memory. She was playing the grieving sister to perfection, using my death to boost her social standing even as she spent my money. Look at this, I said to Emma during one of our late-night video calls, sharing my screen to show her Rebecca's latest Instagram post. It was a photo of her trying on her wedding dress, caption reading, "Wish you were here to be my maid of honor, sister. I know you're watching from above." Emma made a disgusted sound. She's unbelievable. And your parents? They're just going along with this. I felt the familiar ache in my chest. They probably think it's easier this way. They never approved of my choices anyway. Having a dead daughter who died following her dreams probably fits their narrative better than a living one who disappointed them. Sarah? It's fine, I cut her off. None of that matters now. What matters is making sure Rebecca's perfect wedding has exactly the dramatic ending it deserves. I spent the next month laying low in Emma's apartment on the outskirts of Boston, venturing out only in disguise. I watched from afar as Rebecca's wedding drew closer, as she played the role of grieving sister and blushing bride with equal skill. Every time I saw her photo in the local society pages, every time I read another sympathetic comment about her loss, my resolve strengthened. The weekend before the wedding, I sat with Emma in her living room, finalizing the details of my plan. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, watching me scroll through the wedding website one last time. "It's not too late to handle this legally instead." I shook my head. She didn't just steal my money, Emma. She stole my identity, my existence. She turned me into a tragic story she could use for sympathy. If I handle this legally, she'll find some way to spin it, some way to make herself the victim. No, she needs to face what she did publicly in front of everyone who matters to her. Emma was quiet for a moment. "Your parents will be there," she said finally. "Are you ready for that?" I closed my laptop, thinking about the last time I'd seen them, 3 years ago before I left for Thailand. The disappointment in their eyes, the tight smiles, the passive-aggressive comments about wasting my potential. "They're as much a part of this as she is," I said quietly. They could have stopped her, questioned her story, done something. Instead, they probably helped her do this. They all decided it was easier if I was dead than living a life they didn't approve of. Well, they're about to learn that I'm very much alive, and I'm done letting them write my story. The morning of Rebecca's wedding dawned bright and clear. I stood in Emma's bathroom, staring at my reflection as I carefully applied my makeup. I'd chosen my outfit meticulously, a deep blue dress that I knew would photograph well. After all, this was going to be a moment people would remember. "The ceremony starts at 2, Emma said, leaning against the doorframe. "Are you sure you don't want me to go in with you?" I shook my head, pinning back my hair. "No, you being there would tip them off. I need an element of surprise. Just be ready with the car for a quick getaway if things get ugly." The Four Seasons Boston was decked out in full wedding splendor when I arrived. White flowers everywhere, champagne flowing, Boston's elite mingling in their finest. I slipped in through a side entrance, using the skills I'd learned from years of navigating crowded Bangkok streets to move unnoticed through the chaos of pre-wedding preparations. I found a quiet corner in the back of the ballroom where the ceremony would take place, partially hidden behind a massive flower arrangement. From there, I could see everything. The elaborate arch where Rebecca would say her vows, the rows of expensive chairs filled with Boston's social elite, the string quartet warming up in the corner. My parents arrived early, of course. Mom in an expensive designer dress, Dad looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. They worked the room like professionals, accepting congratulations and sympathy in equal measure. Such a happy day, though bittersweet without Sarah. I heard my mother say to someone, her voice carrying just the right note of practiced grief. Then I saw Rebecca. She was in the doorway, resplendent in white, surrounded by her bridesmaids. The dress probably cost more than I made in a year teaching, probably paid for with my money, I thought bitterly. She was beaming, basking in the attention, every inch the perfect bride. Places, everyone. The wedding planner called out, "We're starting in 5 minutes." I watched as guests hurried to their seats as the string quartet began the processional music, as Rebecca's bridesmaids lined up in their matching pink dresses. My hands were shaking, but my resolve was firm. The ceremony began. I let Rebecca have her moment, let her walk down the aisle on our father's arm, let her take her place under the flower arch. I waited as the officiant welcomed everyone, as he spoke about love and commitment and new beginnings. Then he said the words I've been waiting for. "If anyone knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace." I stepped out from behind the flowers. "I have a reason," I said, my voice clear and strong. "My sister declared me dead to steal my inheritance." The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca's face went white as she turned toward my voice. The bouquet slipped from her hands, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Around us, guests were frozen in confusion, murmuring and craning their necks to see what was happening. "Sarah?" My mother whispered, her perfectly made-up face crumpling in shock. "Hello, family," I said, walking slowly down the aisle. "Sorry I'm late. Being dead really throws off your schedule." Rebecca's fiancé, Mark, was looking between us in confusion. "What's going on?" he asked. "Rebecca, what is she talking about?" I smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "Oh, she didn't tell you. Your bride had me declared legally dead 2 months ago. Fabricated documents about a motorcycle accident in Thailand. Also, she could claim my portion of our grandmother's inheritance early, $2 million. That's what my life was worth to her." The murmuring grew louder. I could see phones coming out, people recording. Rebecca's perfect society wedding was quickly becoming a different kind of social media sensation. That's not true." Rebecca stammered, but her voice was weak. We all thought." "You thought what?" I demanded, now standing just feet from her. "That I wouldn't find out, that I was so far away, so disconnected from home that you could just erase me. Take what was mine and build your perfect life on top of it." "Sarah," my father stepped forward, his face red. "This is hardly the time or place." "When would be a better time, Dad?" I cut him off. "When she's finished spending my money? When she's solidified her position as Boston's grieving socialite? Or maybe after she's done playing the tragic sister who lost her sibling to her reckless lifestyle?" I turned back to Rebecca, who seemed to be shrinking in her expensive white dress. "You know what the worst part is? You didn't just steal my money. You stole my existence. You turned me into a story, a tragic cautionary tale you could use for sympathy." "Well, surprise. I'm not a story. I'm not a tragedy. I'm your sister, and I'm very much alive." The ballroom had erupted into chaos. Guests were whispering frantically, phones were recording everything, and Rebecca's perfect wedding was unraveling thread by thread. "Mark." Rebecca turned to her fiancé, reaching for his hand. But he stepped back, looking at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "Did you do this?" he asked quietly. "Did you really have your own sister declared dead for money?" Rebecca's silence was all the answer he needed. He turned and walked away, ignoring her calls after him. I watched as my sister's carefully constructed world crumbled around her. The perfect bride, the perfect daughter, the perfect society woman. All of it washing away in a tide of shocked whispers and accusatory stares. "I have proof," I announced to the room, pulling out my phone. "Emails, documents, everything showing exactly what she did. I've already sent it to the police and our family lawyer." but I thought everyone here deserved to know exactly who they were celebrating today. My mother stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Sarah, please," she begged. "We can talk about this privately, as a family." I really looked at her, and felt a strange mix of pity and anger. We stopped being a family the moment you decided it was easier to believe I was dead than accept who I really am. The aftermath of Rebecca's wedding was exactly the kind of social scandal that Boston's elite would gossip about for years. I watched from Emma's apartment as the story exploded across social media, local news, and society cages. "Bride's dead sister Tirashi's DWDDIMG," read one headline. "Socialite ACCUSED of FAKing sister's death for in heat RITNC," declared another. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from old acquaintances, distant relatives, and even journalists seeking comments. I ignored most of them, speaking only through the family lawyer as we began the process of reclaiming my inheritance and pressing charges for fraud. The police want to question Rebecca, Emma told me over coffee the morning after the wedding. Apparently, she's not answering her phone. I scrolled through my own phone, looking at a photo someone had captured of Rebecca's face the moment she saw me. The shock, the fear, the realization that her perfect facade was crumbling. It was all there, preserved forever. "She's probably hiding at our parents' house," I said, setting my phone down. "That's where she always ran when things went wrong." I was right. Later that day, our family lawyer confirmed that Rebecca was indeed holed up in our childhood home, refusing to speak to anyone except our parents. The money she claimed from my death had been frozen, and criminal charges were pending. A week after the wedding, I received an unexpected visitor at Emma's apartment. It was Mark, Rebecca's almost husband. "I had to see you," he said, standing awkwardly in Emma's living room. "I needed to understand. Did you know? Before the wedding, did you know what kind of person she was?" I studied him carefully. He looked tired, defeated, nothing like the confident groom from the wedding. "No," I answered honestly. "I knew she was ambitious, materialistic even, but this, having me declared dead? I never thought she'd go that far." He nodded slowly. "I've called off the engagement permanently," he said. I can't be with someone who would do something like that to their own sister." After he left, I sat on Emma's couch, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The years of strained family dynamics, the pressure to conform, the gradual erosion of sisterly love until it became something cold and transactional. My parents finally reached out 2 weeks after the wedding. They wanted to meet, to talk things through as a family. I agreed to meet them at a neutral location, a quiet cafe downtown. They looked older than I remembered, more fragile somehow. Mom's hands shook as she stirred her untouched coffee. Dad couldn't quite meet my eyes. "We didn't know," Mom started, her voice barely above a whisper, "about what Rebecca did. We really thought, that I died. I finished for her. And you didn't think to verify that? To ask questions? To maybe try calling me?" "We tried calling your old number," Dad defended weakly. "It didn't work. I changed my number 2 years ago," I said. "Did you try email? Social media? My school in Bangkok? Or was it just easier to believe I was dead?" They exchanged glances, and I saw the truth in their silence. They had accepted Rebecca's story because it fit their narrative. The wayward daughter meeting a tragic end, proving them right about all their warnings and criticisms. "What's going to happen to Rebecca?" Mom asked finally. "That's up to the police and the district attorney," I replied. "The fraud she committed, it's serious. She could face jail time." Dad's face crumpled. "She's your sister," he pleaded. "Surely you don't want." "Don't?" I cut him off sharply. "Don't ask me to protect her. She tried to erase me from existence for money. She doesn't get to play the sister card now." I stood up, gathering my things. "I'm heading back to Bangkok next week," I told them. "I have a life there, students who depend on me. The lawyer will handle everything else." "You're leaving?" Mom's voice cracked. "But we just got you back." I looked at them both, feeling a strange mix of pity and resignation. "You never lost me," I said quietly. "You just never accepted who I really was." The legal proceedings moved quickly. Rebecca avoided jail time but was ordered to repay every cent she'd taken, plus substantial penalties. She was also required to make public apologies and correct every false statement she'd made about my death. I watched from Bangkok as she made these apologies, looking small and subdued in front of cameras, nothing like the confident socialite she'd once been. Her perfect world had crumbled, taking her reputation with it. 6 months later, I received an email from Rebecca. It was long, filled with apologies and explanations, talking about therapy and realizations and regret. She wrote about growing up in my shadow. Ironic, given how I'd always felt overshadowed by her, and how the pressure to maintain her perfect image had twisted her into someone she didn't recognize. I read it several times but didn't respond. Maybe someday we'd find a way to rebuild some kind of relationship, but for now, the distance felt right. I had my life in Bangkok, my students, my freedom. And most importantly, I had myself, alive, whole, and unwilling to be erased. Yesterday, I received another wedding invitation. Not for a society wedding at the Four Seasons this time, but for Emma's small ceremony on the beach. She'd written a note on it. This time, you better be there, alive and in person. I smiled as I marked the date in my calendar. Some bridges had burned beyond repair, but others had grown stronger through this ordeal. I had learned who truly cared about me, not as a society daughter or a tragic story, but as myself. In the end, Rebecca's attempt to erase me had only made me more real, more solid in who I was. She could try to write my ending, but instead she had only helped me begin a new chapter, one where I was the author of my own story. As I sit here in my Bangkok apartment, grading papers and planning lessons, I think about legacy and family and what it means to truly exist. Rebecca had thought she could erase me with paperwork and lies, but she had failed to understand something fundamental. Our existence isn't defined by legal documents or inheritance money or society's approval. We exist in the lives we touch, the choices we make, and the truth we choose to live. And no one, not even family, has the power to take that away.